What's happening, guys? It's the Miami Football Fanatic here again. Glad you guys could join me here for some more Dolphins content. And in today's video, I want to talk about the Dolphins' options in the second round of the draft, our 48th overall pick. I'm just going to be taking you through all the positions, just possible players that could be available for us there, and that with the 48th overall pick. It's going to be a very important pick for us. This is a guy who's going to be, a cornerstone for this team, whether it's offense or defense. So we definitely got to get this pick works. But just going to be taking you through the prospects and just telling you what I think about them and if they'll be there for the Dolphins at pick number 48, and if they'll fit with the team moving forward. Okay, so starting with quarterback, there's a bit of a conundrum here because Drew Lock or Daniel Jones could be available in the second round, but they're definitely going to be taken in the first round. Whether New England takes one of them, with the 32nd overall pick, or any other team that's looking for a development guy there at the end of the second round, at the end of the first round. I really do not think either of those guys are going to be there. Drew Lock or Daniel Jones. Obviously, Haskins and Murray are going to be going early in the draft, but Drew Lock and Daniel Jones, I really don't see either of them slipping to the 48th overall pick. But as it goes for the other guys, Ryan Finley, Tyree Jackson, Will Grier. Will Grier could be an option in the second round. He's a pretty good quarterback, pretty talented. I think he's got good accuracy. But I really think that Will Grier would be more of a third round pick, so there'd be no other options there. And Jarrett Stidham at this point, I think he's more of a fourth or third round pick. Okay, so on to running back. Josh Jacobs is a guy that's definitely high up on the boards, but he's a guy who's definitely going to be taken, through the 20s of the first round, or even, later on in the first round and early second. He's definitely not going to be there for us, and obviously we don't need him with Kenyon Drake and Kalen Ballage. Devin Singletary could be an option there, but as I said, we really don't need a third running back at this point. We can definitely get one later on in the draft, or we could pick up an undrafted free agent at the conclusion of the draft, or we could sign a free agent going into training camp. There's plenty of guys floating around. Damian Harris and David Montgomery. David Montgomery could possibly go in the second round, but that wouldn't be a wise move for us to take it that early. But no other guys there in the second round for running back. Now, wide receiver, this is very, very, very interesting. There's a number of guys who we could take here in the second round, but I really don't see it happening. Kelvin Harmon from NC State, another similar to Josh Jacobs. He's not the same caliber player that Josh Jacobs is, but Kelvin Harmon coming out of NC State, I definitely love him on the team, but he really wouldn't be available. But if he was there for us, we'd have no choice but to take him. He's a 6'3", big-bodied, strong target who would be tremendous. Marquise Brown, the cousin of Antonio Brown, he could be an option here for us in the second round, but I definitely see him going earlier than the 48th overall pick. I really think the Raiders are probably going to take him with their last first round pick, or possibly with their first pick in the second round. Paris Campbell, he's a guy who definitely could be floating around there for us at 48. He's got tremendous speed, as we saw at the combine. He looked quick when I watched tape before the combine, but knowing that he's a 4-3 player just, puts him up a couple of notches, and he's got great hands and great route running ability. He worked tremendously well with Dwayne Haskins. So Paris Campbell, he's kind of a similar player to Kenny Stills and other players we've got on the team. Kind of a bigger version than Albert Wilson. Well, not really, but you know what I'm saying. Just a guy who's tremendously quick on the field. But all right, I'm talking way too long about Paris Campbell, but he could be an option. Moving on to AJ Brown, the teammate of DK Metcalf. He's a huge a huge slot wide receiver. He's 6'2", 225 plus pounds. He's a tremendously talented receiver. He's got incredible suddenness, especially after the catch and in his route running ability. I really wouldn't be opposed to him coming to the team. Deebo Samuel, this is definitely a guy that I definitely want if there was no other major needs for us. I mean, we pretty much every position is a major need for us at this point, besides maybe wide receiver. But Deebo Samuel, he is just a tremendous wide receiver. You could see at the Senior Bowl, he really was dominating, and he was going at it with Rocky Ya-Sin, and you can just see he's an absolute dog of a wide receiver, and he's going to be a talented wideout in the league. Riley Ridley is another guy, the brother of Calvin Ridley. Similar to Calvin Ridley, he runs tremendous routes. Just their athleticism is just off the charts. I mean, they're 4 or 5 athletes, but they definitely do not play like it. Like watching Calvin Ridley this past year for the Falcons, just his quickness and speed, and just the crispness of his route running is just beautiful to see, and so rare to see from a rookie wide receiver. So Riley Ridley, I think that he'll definitely be a similar player to Calvin Ridley, but not quite on the same caliber. But Riley Ridley, I'm really looking forward to how he's going to play in the league moving forward. The wide receiver out of Georgia, Andy Isabella, could be an option here, but I really think he's a 3rd-round guy. JJ Arcega-Whiteside, he's a big-bodied wide receiver from Stanford. I was seeing places, I don't know if it was a typo or what, but it was saying that he was 6'6". It might have been a different player, but he did measure out to be 6'2" at the combine. So, he's not overly huge like Hakeem Butler, the guy I'm going to talk about next. But he just 50-50 balls, he's going to win them most of the time. He's just a tremendous post-up wide receiver. He's not going to get separation much, but when the ball is in the air, JJ Arcega-Whiteside is going to win 90 to 95% of the time, and that is something that we really haven't had with the team for a long time. Okay, so on to Hakeem Butler. I really couldn't believe how he measured out at the combine. It was saying that he was 6'6" before the combine, but he did measure out to be 6'5", which isn't a big deal. But he's 6'5", he's got 35-inch arms and 10 3/4 inch hands. He is an absolute specimen of a human being, and he ran a 4.4. Can't forget that. A lot of these guys ran quick, but for a guy his size and just his physical attributes, Hakeem Butler, if he was, I can maybe see him being more of a 3rd-round pick, but just another guy to throw out there, a possible option for us at wide receiver. All right, that was way too much time on receivers. A good thing that tight end's only going to feature one player, and that's Irv Smith out of Alabama. He's another guy who's a candidate to be taken late in the 1st round if a team possibly wants to grab him on a 5th-year option contract. But Irv Smith is a tremendous blocker, and he's a great athlete and a great pass-catching tight end, and he'd be great with the team. But I really don't see us taking a tight end early in this draft. We got Mike Gesicki, we've got Dwayne Allen, Clive Walford, Durham Smythe. We've got a number of players, so I really don't see us taking a tight end early in this draft. Okay, so on to tackle. I'm kind of muddled with a couple of these players because there's a couple of guys that I feel and online are saying that they're rated more as 1st-round picks, but I definitely can see them going in the 2nd round, and that's guys like Greg Little, Andre Dillard, Yodny Kajust, and possibly David Edwards out of Wisconsin. Jawan Taylor is definitely a guy that I like, and Jonah Williams, Jawan Taylor, and Cody Ford, they're definitely 1st-round locks, but Greg Little has been slipping down draft boards, but they possibly, could be options for us at right tackle. So that's Greg Little, Andre Dillard, Yodny Kajust, and David Edwards. They definitely could be guys that we want to pick up, and Coach Flores did say that he definitely wants to work on the offensive line in this draft. So, you never know. We could take any one of those guys. Okay, so moving on to guard. We got Michael Dida from Wisconsin, Chris Lindstrom from Boston College, Michael Jordan from Ohio State, and that's pretty much it. There's a couple of other guys, but I really think they're more third-round picks. So Michael, I'm not sure how to actually pronounce his name, but Michael Dieter, I think, from Wisconsin. He's a big physical guy. Played on that awesome Wisconsin offensive line, but he's a guy that's versatile and could potentially move out to tackle. Chris Lindstrom, a big, strong dude from Boston College. You could just watching him at the Senior Bowl and just the way he performed at the Combine, and Daniel Jeremiah complimenting him. He'd be tremendous for us at guard. Michael Jordan, he played center this year for Ohio State. He's a big guy that could be great for us on the interior. So Michael Jordan, at this point, I really feel like he's more of a third-round pick. So, who knows how the Dolphins grade these guys. Okay, so on to center. Dalton Reisner, I really don't think he'll be there at pick 48, so you can forget about him. Garrett Bradbury, he really is a dark horse for us to take at this point, but he's just so incredibly talented. You can just see his movement skills, and just his commitment to the game and the way he can play center. If he is there at pick 48, we shouldn't even think twice about taking him and asking Daniel Kilgore to kick rocks. But Garrett Bradbury, we definitely need to take him if he was there at pick 48. Elton Jenkins and Eric McCoy, I feel like they're more second-round picks. Okay, so on to defensive tackle. We got Jerry Tillery, Draymond Jones, Dexter Lawrence, Jeffrey Simmons, and possibly Gerald Willis. So Jerry Tillery, he's a big, I can't believe, because when I first had a look at his tape, I really didn't think he was much, but after seeing his measurements and the way he performed at the Combine, and just the way different outlets have spoken positively about his pass rushing ability. Going back and watching his tape, you really can see that he's a huge defensive tackle at 6'5", but he's got tremendous length and incredible quickness. He just uses his length incredibly well. You guys should really go watch his tape. Jerry Tillery is a beast, so if he's there in the second round, we really have to grab him. Draymond Jones, similar to Tillery, I really think he's probably going to be a first-round pick, but if he's there, I'd love to have him. I really think he can be incredibly versatile in the hybrid front that the Dolphins want to run. Dexter Lawrence is definitely a guy who could potentially be there in the second round, being that he is a nose tackle and he doesn't really offer a whole lot in terms of pass rushing, so he could possibly be there, but I really do think that if Dexter Lawrence, loses 20 or so pounds, he could be an absolute force. So I'd love to have him on the team. So Jeffrey Simmons, if we wanted to take that chance with him and, let him recover from his ACL injury and bring him on next year, we could do that, but that is definitely something that we can't afford at this point. We're not an established, team and culture like the Patriots. The Patriots could afford to take Jeffrey Simmons with the 32nd overall pick, let him go through his rehab, let him learn the defense, let him learn the culture of the team, and then he'd be good to go in 2020. But with us, being an unstable organization and having a new head coach this year, and wanting to establish a winning culture and a winning team and a winning organization, having Jeffrey Simmons, on the sidelines for a year definitely isn't something that we can afford at this point. So even though I'd love to have him, I really do think he's going to be similar to Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs. Jeffrey Simmons really wouldn't be a smart move for us at this point. Gerald Willis from Miami. I'm going to move on from him. I really do think he's more of a 3rd to 4th round pick. Okay, so on to edge rusher. There's 4 guys right here who I really do think will be available at pick 48, and that is Chase Winovich from Michigan, Charles Omenihu from Texas, LJ Collier from TCU, and Zach Allen. Chase Winovich, just watching his tape, I could see he was a baller. I could see that he was just a truly talented brute of a defensive end who's just putting pressures on, every other play, and he'd be tremendous in our scheme, because I really do think he can play a 4-3 defensive end, or he can play 3-4 linebacker. So Chase Winovich would be absolutely perfect for our new defensive scheme. Charles Omenihu, he's another guy who would be great for the scheme, because he can play potentially inside and outside. He's an absolute specimen. He's got 36-inch arms, 6'6". I can't remember what he weighs. I think he's in the 270s or 280s, but he's an absolute specimen from Texas, and he's more of a project at this point. So, he's a tremendous player. He's hugely talented physically, but I really do think we need to take sure things with our first 3 or 4 picks in the draft. LJ Collier, another tremendously versatile defensive player. I think he played mostly on the edge for TCU, or I watched a ton of his tape the other week, but he's getting a lot of attention from NFL teams, and that just tells you that he can truly ball, and I really do think he'd be great in our scheme. And another guy who would be versatile in our scheme is Zach Allen from Boston College. He's a big guy, 6'3", 6'4". He's 280 plus pounds. Obviously, he could play inside and outside, and he's just a very solid defensive end. Doesn't jump off the tape, with his athleticism or his burst off the line, but he could improve that as his career goes along. But Zach Allen, being as versatile as he is, I think that he'd be a great piece for us, and definitely worthy of a second-round pick. Okay, so on to the linebackers. In the past, I would have said that Devin Bush would have been a possible option, but just the love he's been getting from the draft community, and just some mock drafts and that, it's obvious that a ton of teams in the league, really love him as a linebacker, and I really can see the Steelers taking him. I think they've got the 20th overall pick, but some team in need of a linebacker in the first round is definitely going to take him, so he's not going to be there. Mack Wilson from Alabama definitely could be there at pick 48, but I'm not high on him at this point. He really was weighing going back to Alabama, but he probably should have gone back. It probably would have, made him a definite lock in the first round, but I'm not a big fan of Mack Wilson out of Alabama. And the other linebackers I'm looking at definitely, I don't think are worthy of second-round picks. Okay, so on to cornerback. We've definitely got a number of guys here that we could, potentially take. Julian Love from Notre Dame, Justin Lane from Michigan State, Trayvon Mullen, Clemson, Rock Ya-Sin, Temple, Amani Aruwe from Penn State, Jojuan Williams from Vanderbilt, and Isaiah Johnson from Houston. So, my favorite of all those is definitely Rock Ya-Sin. He just plays the game. He's tremendously similar to Xavier Howard, but he plays with the game with even more of an edge. He plays more like a safety, to be honest, and he could potentially move to that because he's so physical. I'd really have to see. I've got to watch more of his tape and just, see how great of a technician and just how much prowess he has as a cornerback. But Rock Ya-Sin, he'd just be everything I'd want from our defense. But just to go over those names, Julian Love, Justin Lane, Trayvon Mullen. I'm not really big on those three guys. Isaiah Johnson, he's kind of just a big corner from Houston who, I'm not really huge on. Jojuan Williams is my other favorite in the draft. I couldn't believe that he measured in at 6'4" at the combine. He's a huge corner, 6'4". He did run a little bit slow at the combine, but he did greatly improve on that time at his pro day, running a 4.5. So at his size, 6'4", 220, he'd be tremendous on the outside. Add another guy, Amani Overaway from Penn State. He might be the most athletic besides, Greedy Williams and Byron Murphy. Amani Overaway from Penn State, he did perform at the Senior Bowl, but just the way he plays in the field, his athleticism is incredible and will be great for this defense. Okay, so on to safety. Nasir Adderley, I definitely think he'll be going before the 48th overall pick, so we can move on from him. Deontay Thompson from Alabama. He's a talented player. He is a little bit on the skinny side, but at this point, I'm not really big on him. But who knows? The Dolphins. I really don't see them taking him, but who knows? Juwan Thornhill from the University of Virginia. He's another versatile guy, but honestly, I haven't seen much tape. I've got to watch more tape of Juwan Thornhill just to get feel what kind of a player he is. But yeah, just another option for us there. In the second round, Jonathan Abram. I'm definitely a big fan of him. I really do think he's a smaller version of Derwin James. He just plays the game with tremendous physicality. Just the way he tracks down ball carriers and just takes them down like a 300-pound man. He's an absolute beast, and he potentially could be a replacement for Rashad Jones and TJ McDonald down the road if we want to take him in the second round there. Taylor Rapp, another one of my favorites. He ran a 4.7 at his pro day, but he definitely isn't a 4.7 player. He plays the game with he's a tremendously intelligent player, but he's got the athleticism to match. So there isn't much more you could ask for. He can cover guys. He can play in space. He can play in the box. Taylor Rapp is an all-round tremendous safety. Kind of a little bit of a smaller version than Minkah Fitzpatrick. So imagine Minkah and Taylor Rapp in the backfield. That would just be awesome. Another guy is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from Florida. Played a lot of nickel this year. He's a nickel defender. Played a lot of nickel cornerback, but he has played safety, obviously, for Florida. And I think that, with the Dolphins, we're definitely going to be running, 3 safety sets and a hybrid front and a hybrid secondary. So Chauncey Gardner-Johnson would be perfect for our new scheme because he can play, multiple positions for the defense. Okay, so that's it. All the guys there. I'm not sure how many in total. I'm sure there's other guys that you guys definitely think of round 2 players and who could creep in there. But there's all the guys that the Dolphins could potentially take with the 48th overall pick. And as you can see, I'm 23 minutes in here, so there's a number of ways we can go in the second round. I'm sure there's a couple guys I missed, like maybe a couple of running backs like a David Montgomery or a Damian Harris, or a couple of other guys that could be missing. But yeah, as always, let me know in the comments if you agree with my assessments on these players and guys that could potentially be there for us with the 48th overall pick. And make sure to like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed the content, make sure to let me know in the comments. Alrighty, guys, fins up as always. Cheers, folks.